Number 9. Subshelter. Located in the Primorsky region of Russia, this odd shelter is set up for some sort of post-apocalyptic movie. It was meant to shelter submarines of the Pacific Fleet in case of a nuclear war, its build getting started in the 1960s. It became one of the many unfinished objects that were abandoned after the collapse of the USSR. By the 80s, it became very clear this intended nuclear fleet shelter was unneeded because the USSR and the USA had to reduce their nuclear arsenal over the next 7 years due to the agreement they wanted to be signed in May 1991. The agreement was to highlight the reduction of strategic nuclear forces. Even though it was never finished, the subshelter held neat features such as 2 interconnected tunnels, one of them being a water channel 450 meters long and 19 meters wide. The other one was twice as short. They were able to hold 3 guided missile cruises. It hasn't been active for over 25 years, but it wouldn't take much to finish it off. Let's hope not. Number 8. Rochester Psychiatric Hospital. Built in the 1950s, Terrence Tower and the Psychiatric Hospital and Morgue located in Rochester, New York, first opened its doors in 1959. With the tower being 16 stories, it was able to hold over 1,000 beds, housing patients having small mental disabilities to those whose conditions were more extreme. The floors varied, with the 5th floor dedicated to the criminally insane and a general hospital being split between the 13th and 14th floors. A morgue and a lab could be found in the basement. Terrence Tower didn't like to discriminate, though. They treated all of their patients poorly. According to the nurses and floor staff that worked there, patients had to endure abuse from the 1960s well into the late 1980s. They were treated like objects, seen as unfit or crazy, even if they had issues that were considered small. They underwent lobotomies and electric shock therapy and were heavily dosed with medications when staff didn't want them to be disruptive. If that isn't disturbing enough, some patients were dropped off as babies and remained there for the rest of their lives or well into adulthood. As time went on, inhumane treatments were no longer acceptable and began somewhat of a taboo subject. Hospitals began to care more about their patients' mental health, and they were a resource of help and acceptance rather than being a dumping ground. Thankfully, because these practices were seen as no longer acceptable, asylums including Terrence Tower started closing their doors all over the country. Terrence Tower closed its doors for good in 1995. It now sits vacant and empty as it has been for the last 23 years. In 2019, there were talks in the works about demolishing the building and using the property for apartment buildings. Number 7. Lost cities of the Amazon. For centuries, there's been speculation that lost cities exist deep within the Amazon's wilderness. Beginning over 600 years ago, Spanish explorers set out to seek the infamous El Dorado, allegedly the city of gold. Most of them went off the map and were never seen by civilization again. Recently, in the 20th century, a British explorer by the name of Percy Fawcett set out to explore the lost city of Z. Like many of the others, Percy too vanished and was added to the list of people who sought out but couldn't quite get there. The search never ended because more recently, scientists have discovered that ancient cities did exist in the Amazon forests. They did this using key technology, which is a light-based remote sensing technology otherwise known as LiDAR. It was used to digitally deforest the canopy so they could identify the ancient ruins near Llanos de Mojos in the Bolivian Amazon. The images captured revealed quite clearly the socially complex Casanre culture, which dates back to 500 to 1400 CE. This recent discovery proves that Amazon's rainforests were quite populated, even before the recorded history of the area ever began. Other archaeological work shows hundreds of isolated sites across more than 1,700 square miles of the Llano de Mojos area, which included settlements lived in year-round by the Casabre, who grew crops, fished, and hunted. Over 600 miles of canals and causeways have also been revealed. It's a marvelous piece of work. It shows a remarkable range of things that humans did in the past to work with their landscapes and work with larger and larger populations. This, according to Michael Heckenberger, an anthropologist who studies at the University of Florida. Number 6. Glacier Boot. After being swept away in an avalanche on the slopes of Naga Parbat in Pakistan, young Italian climber Günter Messner suffered his untimely death in 1970, nearly 50 years ago. His death was considered anything but mysterious to locals, with suggestions that Günter's very own brother, Reinhold Messner, had abandoned him in hopes of climbing and reaching the top of the 26,660-foot mountain all by himself. Naturally, Reinhold suggests that the allegations were nonsense and that he barely survived the whole ordeal himself, as he had to walk the terrain rain for 6 long days before getting help. This isn't the first time Reinhold has escaped death by a hairline. He's now a world-renowned mountaineer, and he's the first person to complete the hike up Mount Everest without oxygen. Reinhold's innocence has recently been proven this spring after Gunter's custom-made climbing boot was found in a glacier, right where Reinhold said he was swept away, at the foot of the mountain's western diameter face. Aside from this discovery, a bone belonging to Gunter was found on the mountain in 2005, along with his other boot. The mountain never lies, and if there was still the need, the discovery of this boot definitively establishes the truth of my brother's death, Reinhold reported to an Italian newspaper, Corriere della Sera. Reinhold has expressed his wishes for his brother's boot to be sent to him in Italy, where he'd like to put it on display in the Messner Mountain Museum, which was started in 2006 to educate its visitors on rock climbing and mountaineering. Number 5. City Methodist Church in Gary, Indiana. In 1906, a Methodist preacher named William Grant Seaman dreamed of bringing a prominent religious presence to Gary, Indiana due to the numbering brothels and drinking establishments. His dream was so big he needed a bigger church, and big dreams meant needing big money. He was given back by the chief employer in the city known as U.S. Steel. They donated the site on which it was to be built and half of the cost. In total, it took about 21 months to build the church, and it was started in 1925. It wasn't the typical average church. It was a 9-story complex with a theater named after Seaman, a gymnasium, corporate offices, and even a dining hall. By 1929, Seaman grew wildly unpopular due to his interests in cultural diversity. Due to this, his congregation forced him to step down and transfer to a church in Ohio. He eventually passed away in 1944, and his ashes were given to the church per his request. During the Great Depression, the church had to release Seaman Hall to Gary College because they really needed the funds. It peaked in the 1950s with its members reaching 3,000 people. Because the costs for the building were so large, the church took a turn for the worse in the 60s, lasting through the 70s. Unfortunately, the church was unable to afford the upkeep, and by 1973, membership had dwindled to a mere 300 people. By 1975, the church closed its doors once and for all. After its demise, it was handed over to Indiana University, yet nothing was done with it. It was neglected and ultimately fell into disrepair, and in 1997, a fire took over the church. In 2014, plans were made over and over again to restore the building, yet plans were scrapped time and time again. Fun fact, the church has made appearances in several films, TV shows, and documentaries. Number 4. A 2,100-year-old farmstead. Archaeologists have discovered what is believed to be a 2,100-year-old farmstead that may have been abandoned in haste by its owners in fear of a pending military invasion. Located in northern Israel along the Sea of Galilee, it appears to be frozen in time. Though the archaeologists who excavated the site don't know exactly who lived there, they believe the population was part of the Seleucid Empire, who escaped because of the impending invasion of the area by the Hasmonean kingdom. Among their findings were agricultural tools like scythes and picks made from iron, intact storage jars, weights for weaving looms, and coins that dated back to the second half of the 2nd century BC. Little to almost nothing is known about the people or daily life during the Hasmonean period, though the discovery of the loom weights lead the team to believe that weaving was an important task, suggesting that maybe the inhabitants kept herds of sheep or goats. The farmstead discovery was true luck, as it was found during an investigation during a proposed $270 million pipeline project that would deliver fresh water to farmland in Israel and other nearby countries. Number 3. The ghost town of Bodie, California, USA. After miners discovered rich deposits of gold and silver in the desert of what is now California in 1859, the mining town of Bodie was born. Hearing about this, people flooded the town in search of wealth and a great life. Eventually, Bodie became a town full of brothels and hip joints, a sin city. The start of the gold rush. The hot boom of Bodie left just as quickly as it came, and just like that, Bodie became a ghost town by the 1940s. In its prime, Bodie had multiple wealthy mine and stamp mill companies, the bread and butter of the town. But by 1868, those companies were completely abandoned because it seemed the town had been drained of all their gold. Bodie did run into luck once again when a mine collapsed in 1875, revealing a large body of gold. Word got out to neighboring towns, and once again, Bodie was back on the rise with new residents and miners. Bodie was booming as investors and wealthy companies were buying shares. Residents were sure this was it. Bodie was prosperous, successful, and wealthy again. Investors from big cities such as San Francisco and New York City continuously dug deeper mines, spending more money in the hopes of finding even more gold. Unfortunately for them, the big payday never came, the gold. was gone. Over the next few years, settlers still came to Bodie looking for gold and the population grew, forcing Bodie to become a violent Wild West boomtown. Once the population reached 800, the digging and mining eventually stopped, and the town of Bodie was officially broke. Eventually, residents skipped town, leaving behind whatever wasn't nailed down. Bodie today is a National Historic Site and is known to be in arrested decay. Number 2. Ponyhenge. Out in the middle of an open pasture in Lincoln, Massachusetts lies great mystery and weirdness in the form of a field filled with plastic rocking horses, ponies, and various other vintage toys. The first pony was noticed sometime in 2010, making its arrival on Old Sudbury Road about 15 miles west of Boston. The questions that the residents of Lincoln asked are how and why did this little horse get here? Speculation claims that a little boy ditched it after working at his lemonade stand, or that it was left over from a Christmas display. The owners loved the horse collection, reporting to the Boston Globe. There was something lovely about it being anonymous, and now every time we go away, another one appears. One plastic rocking horse appearing out of nowhere is strange all by itself, but what is even more strange is the fact that more horses and ponies started to appear. The creepy part is that every so often the horses are in different patterns. Sometimes they'll sit neatly in a row, other times in a circle, and they've even been seen laying scattered around as if they had a big night of dancing the night before. Does this mean they come alive when no one is looking? No one will ever know. Where do you think the ponies are coming from? Let us know in the comments. Number 1. Discovery Island. Amazement, wonder, fun, and magic come to mind when you think of Disney World, but what if you were told there was a hidden secret right before your very eyes? On Disney World's map, an empty green mass can be seen sitting in the middle of Bay Lake, located in Orlando, Florida. It was passed off as a mysterious island, but this was anything but that. It was actually another amusement park called Discovery Island, closing suddenly in 1999. Discovery Island first opened in 1976 under its original name, Treasure Island. In the same year, it was renamed Discovery Island, with its main attractions being over 150 exotic birds and fauna. In 1989, Disney was accused by PETA for mistreating vultures that landed on the island. Disney did not admit to the allegations, but they did say that some vultures did die during their capture. Charles Cook, the park's curator, and 4 of his staff members had 16 serious charges filed against them, including mishandling of vultures, shooting hawks and falcons, and the damaging of ibis and egret nests. Investigators found a small metal shed that had no windows, food, water, or perches. Inside the shelter, 19 vultures were found. One of them was dead. Cook and his workers claimed the vultures defecated on the boardwalks and attacked animals, and the hawks, falcons, and owls attacked the show pigeons. After cleaning up their act, the charges were dropped. Disney would not admit they did anything wrong. Soon after, Disney debuted its park, Animal Kingdom. In April 1999, Discovery Island closed for good. To this day, trespassers make their way into the park, despite Disney's warning not to. Swimming across the lake using a GoPro and dropping drones in the park are all attempts, and some successful, made at seeing the park. Anyone who was caught received penalties, fines, and life bans from the park. It just goes to show you that curiosity always comes with a price. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another amazing video right here on American Eye.